Hey guys, welcome back to the Skywalker Academy and welcome to the start of a new segment that I'm going to call Kyrol's Cut Concepts. You all wanted to see some of the early ideas, characters, artwork, and etc. for this series, so I'm going to give it to you. This video in particular will be the early story concepts. It will include 3 early rough draft ideas that I had before even landing on the Legend of Kyrol, including some of the character designs, some of the plot, and more. And as I go through these, you can kind of see how these ultimately turned into the Legend of Kyrol in some way, shape, or form. Now, before I get into the actual concepts themselves, I want to talk a little bit about why I wanted to make a story to begin with. Well, firstly, one of my big inspirations was Concordia Jedi in his book of Cassius, which I've mentioned a few times. The way he told that, and I got engrossed into these characters, I wanted to do something like that as well. But I've also had ideas for stories over the years and like some fun ones I had when I was younger, just fun messing around with like, oh, what if I had this or what if there was a Jedi who did this? But as I've gotten older, I've gotten into storytelling, filmmaking, all that. So I figured this is a great way for me to tell an interesting story set in a universe that I love so much. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the very first concept was going to be completely different. It followed a young Jedi Knight named Jason Zazik, and it would follow his adventures throughout the galaxy. This was more serialized, like episode of the week type of thing, while leading to a bigger confrontation and struggles throughout the galaxy. As well as his dealing with his own personal struggles, he would also have to finish the training of a Padawan that happened, like, I'd say, in the third episode or so. Like, he's sent on a mission, the Padawan is in trouble, the Master dies, so he takes over her training, but he doesn't really know, he's not ready. Kind of like Obi-Wan, he wasn't ready to train Anakin, but he feels this responsibility and this connection to this apprentice, so he's agreed to take over her training. Now, this was set during the end of the Old Republic era, and throughout this whole story, there would have been a mystery leading to the reveal of a secret Sith Empire and how the galaxy and the Jedi deal with the fact that they think the Sith are gone, but they're back, or a remnant of them is still alive, but this remnant is far more dangerous than the actual Sith Empire. This featured so many characters from Jedi, Sith, bounty hunters, and so much more. Some of them included, but were not limited to, Jason Zazik, the main character, Kara Maors, who would have been Jason's Padawan that he took over the training for, Skull Ozell, who was his best friend, who also has his own struggles with the dark side and his rage, Sylvie Novik was his other best friend, and I was going to hint at a possible romance between the two, but that was something I was toying on and not really sure about. Darth Redivivis would have been the main antagonist and Kyrol's foil, but also they're very similar in a lot of ways. Jester Tolt would have been an associate of Jason's. We would have seen more about her, their friendship, and how that developed, and Cab would have been a bounty hunter doing his own thing. He kind of piss off everyone, but he's doing it for the credits, so he doesn't really care. Now, why this idea was ultimately scrapped was just for the simple fact it wasn't coming together the way I wanted it to, and I felt there was more that I could do. Maybe I might come back to this one day, but right now it's like in the earliest drafts. I haven't even written that much for it. But yeah, that was this one, and if you would like to see this one at some point in the future, let me know because I kind of want to come back to this at some point. Now, the second cut concept was totally and completely different, but I hope to come back to this one just because of how unique it was in comparison to what we've gotten. It was called The Chronicles of Ren, and this was a Sith oriented story focusing on a pair of Sith twins, well, no shit, Sith twins, named Ash and Kaya Ren, or as their Sith names were known, Darth Redivivis and Darth Zula. Yeah, I kept the name Redivivis because I love it. It's actually my go-to Sith name for anything. And the story was set during the Old Republic, but I haven't pinpointed the exact time frame. But it's like when the Sith Empire and the Jedi were in constant conflict, turmoil, galaxy-wide wars, and all that. But this would follow their journey and training to be Sith from like basically the time they were 3 or 4, so they have very few memories of their birth family. Now, they would discover that they were a Force dyad and train in secret to control it because obviously they're raised by Sith. They think the Empire is going to do something if they learn that that these two have this extremely rare connection. And also, it being them being raised by Sith, they think the Empire is good. They truly are true believers in what the Empire is doing. But over the first few books or chapters, or I don't remember how I wanted this to be, but over the course of the first few chapters, basically, slowly become disillusioned after they meet a Jedi Padawan. They learn about his story, his side of things, slowly seeing more of the cruelty of the Sith Empire, and learning about how they were indoctrinated into the Sith Order, which was by questionable means, putting it lightly. They eventually leave, not before literally getting hunted down. They try to leave, and they go into exile on this farm planet, which I wrote as Dantooine, but I wasn't positive on if that was going to be the one. But this planet was ultimately where they were raised when they were like 3 or 4 before they were indoctrinated, and they would become part of this family of farmers and learn a human connection and wanting to just live their life and not be a part of this anymore as a way to repent for their actions. But over the course of this portion, the Sith would find them. One of their hunters would go after them, take them out, try to attack the family, etc. Their Jedi ally would show up as well, and they would defeat this Sith assassin, whatever you want to call it. And they would ultimately agree to join the Jedi to stop the Sith Empire, or at the very least stop their instructors and that portion of the Sith Empire. And it would end with Ash committing self-sacrifice to save his twin sister. Ultimately, she goes back to the planet and lives her life. But I did write in something cool. Obviously, they're Sith, so they have red lightsabers and red kyber crystals. Well, during the portion right before they leave to join the Jedi, they basically, I can't remember purifying their crystals, turning them white. So they're a set of Jedi Sith twins who have white lightsabers. And that's basically how I kind of wanted this one to go, seeing like starting out with Sith fully indoctrinated and slowly turning to the light while still using those dark side powers because they're so used to them. And some of the main characters obviously would include obviously the Sith twins, Ash and Kaya Ren, Darth Imperius, who would have been their main antagonist, who was actually a Chiss Sith, which I thought would have been pretty cool. Darth Vex, who would have been a secondary antagonist, was like their lightsaber instructor and was extremely harsh on them to the point where it was borderline abusive. Jaro Gaidon? Yeah, that's how I said it. Jaro Gaidon would have been their Jedi ally, their friend, and Kaya and Gyro were going to develop feelings for each other as well. You can kind of see a theme, stuff like this happening throughout all of these. And why this one wasn't actually so much scrapped as I just put it on the back burner. I loved this story overall and was actually in the early stages of outlining how I wanted it to go, and I was coming up with titles for the books. But the details were killing me to the point where I can't do this the way I wanted it to. So I just put it on the back burner. So I might decide to come back to this one after finishing The Legend of Kyrol or at some point, just because I love telling stories, and I think this is a really good, interesting story that I'd love to tell at some point. So the third and final story concept idea I had started to write down was about Zane Kuzan, who's a young Jedi Padawan, and his master, along with his two friends, who I didn't really name yet, but one's a guy, one's a girl, basically. Same thing as Kyrol's, but he would he would have dark visions, dealing with his own doubts as a weak Jedi because his midichlorian count was lower than Obi-Wan's, and his own failings as an older brother because he was taken to the order when he was a late bloomer, basically, and his younger brother was unknowingly taken by the Sith or Dark Acolytes or something. I couldn't decide which I wanted, but we'll use Sith for this just to make things easier. But he was taken by them, so he's dealing with the fact that, and his parents were dead, so he's dealing with the fact that he wasn't there to protect his younger brother, and he doesn't know where his younger brother is. So it's a constant driving force for him to be a strong Jedi, be a strong person, because he doesn't want to lose anyone else. And throughout the course of this story, he would have dealt with dark visions, and those dark visions would have ultimately revealed that his younger brother is still alive and serving these dark acolytes as their own personal assassin. Now, age wise, his younger brother's 13, so a 13-year-old doing this, that's was the dark portion of it. And Zane is 15, so it's a 2-year age difference. He's mad that he couldn't protect his younger brother, and he wants to do everything he can to bring his brother back, just so at the very least he has his family back with him. He would have gone on a journey to realize that he is stronger than he thinks. He is a good Jedi. He is a good brother. He wasn't there when this happened, so he can't blame himself. One of his friends would have learned that she is more than just the lightsaber. She is more than just the fighter. She can be a good instructor, can be all this. And the whole reason I actually scrapped this one was just for the simple fact it wasn't working and I couldn't find a way to make it work. So, and I just scrapped it, and I didn't even have early concept art for it, unlike the other two, which is kind of sad, but hey, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Hey, it's Post Skywalker Academy here. So I actually did have some art for his younger brother, so let me show you that real quick. Sorry about that. Now, at this point, I basically went back to the drawing board and I decided to keep the idea of one Jedi, their personal struggles, instead of focusing on multiple characters because it became too much to handle. So I focused on one Jedi, his struggles, the dark side, cryptic visions, but also betrayal and attachment, because I think all these could make great ideas for a story, and combining them together was honestly the best move I had made. And after laying out a general outline for the whole series, like specific things that had to happen in each book and the overall arcing story, I felt confident in it, and so the Legend of Kyrol began, although at the time it was the Legend of Kyrol Novak. Either way, it began. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and the start of this new segment. Let me know what you liked about these previous ideas, if you would like to see them come back in the future, either in a future story or as their own individual stories. And please leave a like, comment your thoughts on these past ideas, and as always, may the Force be with you.